The San Francisco sky was painted in tones of deep orange and violet, the kind of dusky brilliance that made the bay shimmer like something out of a dream. But inside the Chase Center, the hum of pre-game rituals had already drowned out the outside world. In the locker room, the usual buzz filled the air. Trainers prepping gear, teammates bouncing in place to warm up playlists, snippets of last-minute strategy whispered between coaches and players. Everything was as it always was before a high-stakes playoff game. Everything, except for the envelope in Stephen Curry's locker. It was cream-colored, elegant in its simplicity, sealed with a wax stamp in the shape of a crescent moon, a private symbol between him and Ayesha since their early days. No name, no note. Just waiting. Steph noticed it immediately, his hand pausing mid-reach for his game shoes. He glanced around. No one else seemed to be paying attention. He peeled the envelope, opened slowly, heart ticking a half-beat faster than usual. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded neatly. Her handwriting, neat, looping, unmistakably hers, began with just one word. Tonight. Tonight, you're not just playing a game. You're fulfilling a promise. Remember Vancouver 2008? That cramped apartment, the broken stove, and your knee still sore from summer league? I asked you what would keep you going if the dream ever started to feel like a job. You said, if I can still play for love, love of the game, love for you, and love for something bigger than us, then I'll always show up. You don't know this, but that line saved me, Steph. So many times when I was doubting everything, myself, the kids, my own voice, I remembered what you said. You play for love. And tonight, I want you to remember that. There's a cause we've talked about for years but never stepped into together. Kids like Jameel from Oakland, girls like Maya from Charlotte. You've always said, when the time is right. I believe that time is now. Not next season, not when it's convenient. Now, because you're ready, because they need you, and because this stage is the biggest you'll ever have. So play your game, baby. But more than that, play for love. Show them who you are when the jersey fades and the lights go down. I'll be watching from courtside, holding on to that promise you made when we had nothing but each other. Love always. Steph read it twice, then again. By the third time, the sounds of the locker room had faded into a gentle haze. His fingers trembled slightly as he folded the letter and tucked it into the inside pocket of his warm-up jacket. He sat there for a moment, elbows on knees, staring at the ground. Draymond called out from across the room, his voice cutting through the quiet fog in Steph's head. You good, bro? Steph looked up, blinked once, nodded. Yeah, he said, his voice hoarse, just focused. As the team gathered for the final huddle, the familiar chant rang out. 1, 2, 3, Dubs! Steph added something under his breath. Not part of the usual routine. For love. He jogged onto the court with his team, eyes scanning the crowd, as the arena filled. Thousands of fans packed every seat, buzzing with anticipation. Phones up, jerseys on. Chants starting to build. And then he saw her, Ayesha, seated courtside, wearing the same silver chain he gave her on their 5th anniversary. Their eyes met for a second. Just a second. But something passed between them that no one else could. Feel, a recognition, a quiet ignition. The lights dimmed. The announcer's voice thundered through the building. At guard, 6'2", number 30, Stephen Curry, yay! The crowd erupted. Steph took a deep breath and stepped forward. But something felt different. Not pressure, not nerves. It was focus, but a kind laced with purpose. Not just for the win, not just for legacy. Tonight he would play for love. The first quarter started with a snap of energy that rippled through the Chase Center like an electric current. Every dribble, every screen, every sharp rotation seemed to crackle a little louder tonight. Fans leaned forward in their seats, sensing something intangible brewing beneath the surface. An edge, a charge, something they couldn't name yet. From the jump ball, Steph Curry was different. It wasn't just the quickness of his first step, or the arc of his three-point shot, which swished perfectly through the net less than a minute into the game. It was the look in his eyes. Focused, yes, but deeper. There was no nod to the bench, no playful smile, no casual shimmy after the shot, just a deep exhale, as if checking a box on a list only he could see. On the sidelines, Coach Steve Kerr noticed it too. He crossed his arms and leaned in closer to the court. "Steph's in a different gear," he muttered to an assistant. "Let's ride it." The arena roared as the Warriors traded buckets with the Lakers, the game tight from the start. LeBron James, ever the rival, was locked in his own rhythm, dishing assists with surgical precision and draining tough mid-range shots. But Steph's performance wasn't about showmanship tonight. It was surgical, controlled, yet somehow charged with emotion. By the time he hit his fourth three-pointer, a step-back fadeaway from well beyond the arc, the crowd exploded into a frenzy, chanting his name. "Curry! Curry! Curry!" But Steph didn't raise his arms or ask for their energy. He didn't need it. His mind was far from the cheers. In his head, flashes of memory looped between possessions. Jamil, the Oakland teen who showed up to one of his summer camps wearing torn shoes and a smile wider than the Bay Bridge. Maya, the girl from Charlotte who sent Ayesha a handwritten letter saying she wanted to build safe places for kids to read because her library felt like church. He hadn't forgotten them, but he hadn't acted either. His foundation, eat, learn, play, had done amazing things. But Ayesha's letter had brought to the surface the promise he had quietly postponed: to create a national initiative combining sports literacy and mentorship, starting with youth who fell between the cracks. Kids not athletic enough for scholarships, not protected enough to feel safe at school, not loud enough to get noticed, and now, the stage was here. "Two!" the ref shouted, slicing through the tension on court. Lakers timeout. The Warriors jogged to the bench, high-fiving, dripping sweat. Steph dropped onto the folding chair beside Kerr, towel already around his neck. His chest heaved in quiet rhythm. Kerr leaned in. "You're locked in. That something personal?" he asked, tone quiet but direct. Steph didn't answer right away. Then, softly, "Letter from Ayesha." Kerr nodded, not needing details. "Ride that wave, but don't drown in it." Steph gave him a half-smile, the first of the night. Back on the floor, the second quarter started hotter. The Lakers doubled Steph immediately, throwing long, agile defenders his way. He adjusted. Fast. Instead of forcing shots, he began orchestrating. The offense with sharp passes, setting up teammates with precision. A no-look bounce pass to Wiggins, a quick dish to Draymond at the top of the key. The scoreboard ticked in the Warriors' favor, but tension remained thick. At halftime, the Warriors led by 6. In the locker room, noise swelled. Trainers moving fast, whiteboards full of markers and arrows, players slapping backs and hydrating. Steph sat in front of his locker, towel draped over his head. He reached inside his jacket pocket again. The letter was still there. He didn't read it again. He didn't need to. Klay Thompson walked over, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You good?" he asked, voice steady but concerned. Steph looked up at his longtime teammate, his brother in battle. "Yeah," he said. "Just not playing for the same reasons tonight." Klay paused. "You mean not for the ring?" Steph shook his head. "No, for something bigger. Something we should have done already." Klay didn't ask more, just gave a short nod and sat beside him, quietly tying his shoes. That's how it was with them. No need for long talks, just presence. Third quarter began, and the storm hit. The Lakers came out with force, LeBron barreling to the rim, Davis slamming offensive boards. The Warriors began to slip. A turnover, then another, a missed free throw. The gap narrowed. Fans started to get tense, gripping their popcorn, leaning in. Steph was on the bench when the lead vanished. He watched silently, legs bouncing, mouth guard. clamped between his teeth. Then came the moment. Down by 3, with 3 minutes left in the third, Kerr signaled, "Steph, in!" The crowd erupted. He jogged back on the floor, locking eyes with Ayesha again. She wasn't smiling. She was watching him the way she had back when they were nobodies, before the fame, the banners, the pressure. Back when a win meant rent got paid, not banners in the rafters. He stepped to the arc, dribbled once, shot, splash, tie game, as he ran. Back on defense, something lifted. Not just momentum, something internal. He wasn't chasing a stat line. He wasn't chasing a title. He was chasing that feeling again, of playing for love. The fourth quarter began with an almost eerie silence inside Stephen Curry's mind. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of calm. The kind of calm that only comes when purpose outweighs pressure. The score was tied at 89. The crowd was a sea of blue and gold, every fan standing, pulsing with adrenaline. But for Steph, the noise dimmed as he stared down the hardwood, eyes fixed, heart steady. This wasn't just another quarter. This was the quarter. He had been here countless times. Game on the line, all eyes on him. But tonight, those eyes felt heavier, not because of judgment, but because of expectation. Not to entertain, not to win, to mean something, to prove that a game could ripple far beyond the court. The Lakers struck first, a dunk by Anthony Davis off a slick LeBron assist. Golden State countered with a 3 from Klay Thompson. Then LeBron again, this time driving through contact and finishing with a left-handed layup. The pace tightened, like a noose slowly pulling. Then came the moment that shifted everything. With 6:12 left on the clock, Draymond Green tipped a loose ball into the backcourt. Steph chased it down, 2 defenders hot on his heels. He reached the ball first, stopped at the 3-point line, and instead of shooting, he passed. A behind-the-back bounce to Jonathan Kuminga, who soared to the rim and slammed it down. The arena erupted. But it wasn't just the assist that shocked the crowd. It was Steph's reaction. He turned to his bench, placed a hand over his heart, and then pointed up. Not toward the rafters, but toward the stands. Toward Ayesha. The gesture was simple, but heavy with meaning. He wasn't asking for applause. He was acknowledging her. The letter. The promise. Back on defense, Steph's mind drifted, briefly, dangerously, to Vancouver. That cold, dim apartment, where he and Ayesha spent nights wrapped in one blanket, counting every dollar. The nights she read out loud from children's books, practicing for the cooking show she dreamed of hosting one day. The silence when he got benched for the entire second half of a G League game. The fight they had about whether chasing the dream was even worth it anymore. "You're more than a shooter," she'd said that night. "You're a story." But the world has to see all of it. He hadn't believed her back then. He did now. With 4 minutes left, the game locked at 96, Steph shifted into what fans would later call that other zone. Not the logo shot zone. Not the chef's cooking zone. Something colder, sharper, possessed with purpose. A quick cross, a burst into the paint, float over Davis. 2 points. Next possession, steal, transition, pull-up 3, net, timeout Lakers. The Chase Center was thunder. On the bench, Kerr leaned into him. "You want a break?" Steph shook his head. "Not tonight." The Lakers responded. LeBron with a jumper, Davis with a putback. The game narrowed again, 103-102 Warriors. With 51 seconds left, Steph brought the ball up, crowd chanting, "Shot." Clock ticking. He didn't rush. He let the moment breathe. Then, with the defender crowding him, he stepped back, way back, 32 feet, released. The ball rose into the air like a promise kept. Splash. The final buzzer sounded minutes later, sealing a 109-104 victory for the Warriors. Steph finished with 44 points, 9 assists, and a stat line that made headlines. But what happened after the game, that made history. Instead of running into the tunnel or waving to fans, Steph walked to center court. He motioned for a microphone. The PA crew hesitated, but they gave it to him. He stood alone at midcourt, jersey soaked, towel around his neck. The crowd, sensing something different, went quiet. "I wasn't going to say anything," he began, voice steady. "But I think some things need to be said now, while the lights are still on." He took a breath. Ayesha stood up in her seat, tears already in her eyes. "I got a letter before this game, from someone who knows me better than anyone, and it reminded me why I started this whole thing, why I kept going when I wanted to quit, why the points don't matter if they don't mean something." He reached into his jacket on the bench and pulled out the letter. "I made a promise years ago that if I ever had the platform I'd use it, not just to play, but to lift people who never get this kind of stage." A pause. "Tonight wasn't about stats. It was about purpose," the crowd murmured, then cheered, then fell silent again. Steph raised his head. "We're launching something new, starting this week. A nationwide mentorship and literacy program built for kids like Jamil in East Oakland, Maya in Charlotte, and every young person who's got a spark but no fuel." He pointed to the Jumbotron, where the words "Play for Love" flashed in gold letters. Underneath, a new initiative by Stephen and Ayesha Curry. The crowd erupted. Steph nodded once, quietly, humbly, then walked off the court. That night, the clip went viral in under an hour. Not for the three-pointers, not for the stat line, but for the look in Steph's eyes when he spoke about playing for love, a look that said, this game had changed him, but not as much as he was about to change the game. The morning after the game, San Francisco stirred with the slow rhythm of a city still digesting something historic. There had been big wins before, playoff buzzer beaters, parades, but what happened the night before felt different. It wasn't just about basketball. It was about meaning, about intention rippling outward from a hardwood floor to places the game itself rarely touched. Steph Curry woke early, not to train, not to review film, but to watch the sunrise. From the balcony of their Bay Area home, coffee in hand, he leaned against the railing, the cool morning breeze brushing his face. Below, the street was quiet. No photographers, no reporters, just birdsong and the faint hum of delivery vans. Behind him, Ayesha stepped outside, wrapped in a robe, carrying a second mug. "You didn't sleep," she said, not asking. Knowing, he took the coffee, smiling. "No, but not from stress. It's different this time." She sat beside him. "I watched the clip again," she said. "What you said, the way you said it." He looked out at the bay, the water glittering under the new sun. "I meant it. Every word. I just didn't know it would hit like that." She reached for his hand. "That's because they saw the part of you you don't always show. The reason behind the greatness." Across the country, screens lit up with the news.
Stephen Curry's post-game speech sparks national movement. Play for Love initiative receives $5 million in donations overnight. More than an MVP, Curry's message reverberates beyond the court. On social media, hashtags trended.
Play for love, Curry promise, more than basketball. Parents shared stories of kids writing letters to their heroes. Teachers posted about school reading corners being renamed after Curry. High school coaches organized team talks, not about defense or fast breaks, but about purpose. In Oakland, Jamil watched the speech in the living room of his foster home. Headphones on, tears sliding down his cheeks. "He said my name," he whispered. In Charlotte, Maya sat beside her grandmother, replaying the clip over and over. "Grandma, he really remembered me." And in the heart of San Francisco, a local rec center that had been slated to close received a grant from the new foundation just hours after the game ended. A week later, Steph stood again in front of cameras, but this time, not in an arena. He was at a middle school in East Oakland, surrounded by students, volunteers, and press. The Play for Love banner stretched across the gym wall behind him. Tables were stacked with books, custom basketballs, tablets for digital learning, even cooking kits designed by Ayesha herself. "I don't want this to be just a headline," Steph said, hands resting on the podium. "I want this to be a habit, a culture. Every kid deserves the tools to dream bigger. Every kid deserves to be seen." He stepped down to join the students, passing out books, signing sneakers, listening to stories. One boy, maybe 10 years old, tugged at his sleeve. "You're the guy from the video," he said. Steph knelt beside him. "Yeah, I guess I am." The boy looked down, shy. "I'm not good at sports, but I like drawing." Steph smiled wide. "Then draw like your life depends on it." The boy lit up. That night, Steph and Ayesha sat in their living room, the kids, finally asleep, their home quiet. She curled into him, legs tucked under a blanket. "You know this doesn't end here, right?" she asked. "I know," he said. "And I don't want it to." She looked up at him. "What changed?" He thought, for a long moment before answering. "For years I played to prove something, that I belonged, that I could carry the team, that I was worthy of the spotlight." A beat. But the letter. "You reminded me why I started, why I stayed, and what I still haven't done." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I knew you'd hear it." He kissed the top of her head. "I didn't just hear it, I felt it. And now, I think the world does too." In the months that followed, the Play for Love initiative expanded to 6 cities, then 12, then 20. NBA players joined in, musicians, authors, local activists. It wasn't a charity, it was a movement, a blending of community, creativity, and commitment, built around the idea that greatness is only real if it lifts others. Steph kept playing, of course, still racking up threes, still dazzling. But fans noticed something else. He didn't shimmy as much. He didn't gesture to the crowd. His joy was quieter now, no less bright, but more grounded. And every once in a while, after a particularly beautiful play, he'd tap his chest, then point to the sky. And if you knew the story, you knew what that meant. He wasn't playing for legacy anymore. He was playing for love.